What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you 7 tips for the Waylanders, which is launching today, February 2nd. And while I work my way through the game for my review after 100%, I thought we'd kick it off with some tips to help people get started here on launch day. Now, these range the gambit from really simple to, I would argue, more important on higher difficulties. Tried to get a good mix in there for all levels of player. But to start off pretty simply, I recommend actually using the combat tutorial in-game. Combat itself, pretty straightforward. If you've ever played Dragon Age Origins specifically, or even Dragon Age Inquisition, you'll kind of get what they're going for. The combat is tactical, but also third person, kind of real time with pause. But the real reason I would advise people to use the combat tutorial is that tutorial will teach you about formations. Formations are just that. They're formations of 3 of your companions, or yourself, or a mix thereof, in a formation. This formation will essentially become its own unit on the battlefield, which can be ended to separate your characters back into their individual stances. But while in your formation, that formation has its own unique abilities, which can, as you might imagine, affect the battle a great deal. Now, doing this all the time might not necessarily be to your benefit, however, because A, you have to, of course, put people in the formation, which means they aren't doing their normal thing. But also, if the formation dies, your characters are going to take a bunch of damage, as well as be knocked down for a period of time. But used tactically, formations can be very, very good. And later on, as you level up, you'll even have the option of upgrading some of these formations and what they're able to do for you. And each class, either from yourself or your companions, will get access to 2 formations, which you'll get to pick. Which somewhat brings us to our next tip, and that is when you pick up companions for the first time permanently, some of them you get to choose their class. Other more special companions already have like a set class so you can't change it, but a lot of them you get to pick between 2 options. So the obvious tip there is pick classes you yourself aren't and just trying to give yourself a broad array of possible companions and what they can do for you. But on top of that, when you first get to that screen that shows you what class to pick, the other thing to keep in mind is that you need to set that character's stats. So companions get given to you as a bit of a blank slate outside of the choice between 2 classes, which means you need to go in and set their attributes because they'll have whatever the base amount for that level is, but they're unassigned. So you'll have to go in, assign their attributes, and also their abilities for their class, because they get 1 ability point per level. So if you pick up a companion at level 5, they've got a bunch of ability points, etc., that you need to then go in and set. Getting into a bit more interesting stuff with the third tip, and that is buy and use scrolls. So as soon as you can find the first scroll merchant, which is fairly early in game, you should start buying these up, especially on higher difficulties. Scrolls are, like they are in most other games, a single-use spell that you can assign to basically any character. These are very powerful, they do a lot of damage, or they can summon a creature for you, they can potentially resurrect a fallen companion, and basically scrolls are very important, and if you're playing on anything above the easiest of easy modes, you definitely need to be using scrolls. Now, for our next tip, number 4, which is a combat tip, focus on the back line of enemies a lot of the time. If you have a melee character, what you're going to want to have them do is draw the attention of the main shieldy taunt bros, but then from there, you need to use the rest of your party to kill the backline enemies, like the sorcerers, the archers, because they have low health, but they deal a lot of damage. So attacking them is pretty important. And then you can deal with the high health, lower damage guys kind of just as you see fit. But you're going to find that you're often outnumbered, and tactically taking down specific enemies at certain times is going to be a big part of the gameplay loop here. Now, for our 5th tip, it is quite simply buy and use food. So much like scrolls, food is very important. So food and potions do what food and potions do in every other game. That is, heal you, heal your resources, grant you buffs, etc. But food specifically is actually really good because it can restore your health. In fact, it's probably the best way to heal yourself, even in combat. So you can set these on your hotbar, use the food, which will heal you in combat, and it will actually heal more than healing with actual healing spells tends to do. So while you definitely want to have a healer at some point, more often than not, just having food for your characters to scarf down is more effective than actually healing. Now, for our 6th tip, we have the Forge. So a little bit into the game, kind of after the prologue, more or less, you're going to get access to a ship. And on that ship is a couple of important things to note. The game doesn't really tell you about these, but they're very important, I would say. The first up is the Forge. So if you talk to the smith on your boat, he can socket gems and things into your equipment. So you're going to find gems, etc. as you play the game. Some weapons, of course, have sockets, and you can socket certain types of gems into certain types of sockets, such as offensive, defensive, etc. Basic stuff, but a very important thing to know. And then for our final tip, we have a bit of inventory management guidance. So you're going to pick up a lot of stuff in this game, and if you right-click an item and hold it, that item will glow red. And while the game doesn't explain what this does super well, it will actually send these items that you're right-clicking into your stash on your boat. You can actually do this before you even get the boat, but once you get the boat, your items will then be in the item depot waiting for you, which is going to help you store items, keep track of your inventory, and is overall just a very useful feature. There you go, guys. Some tips for the Waylanders here on launch day. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy the game if you bought it. I assume if you're watching this, you probably have, or at least planning to. And with any luck, these tips will help you out. So thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.